Berlin in the 1700s was rapidly transforming from a modest fortress town into one of Europe's emerging capitals. Under Prussian rule, the city was expanding beyond its medieval walls, developing new districts, grand boulevards, and baroque architecture that would define its character for generations to come. In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring historic paintings and engravings to life, allowing us to shift perspective, change camera angles, and move through the same scenes in ways their original artists never could. First, I want to talk about the Berlin City Palace, or Stadtschloss, a structure that stood at the very heart of Prussian power for centuries. By the 1700s, the palace had been transformed into one of the most impressive Baroque residences in Northern Europe. It was far more than just a royal home. It was the administrative center of the Kingdom of Prussia, a symbol of Hohenzollern authority, and a testament to Brandenburg's rise from a modest electorate to a major European power. The palace dominated the cityscape along the River Spree, its massive facade stretching hundreds of meters, decorated with sculptures, columns, and elaborate stonework. Inside, magnificent halls hosted diplomatic receptions, military councils, and royal ceremonies. The palace complex included courtyards, gardens, chapels, and administrative wings where the machinery of state governance operated daily. Kings and their advisors made decisions here that would shape not just Berlin, but the entire German-speaking world. The Spree River functioned as Berlin's lifeline, much as the Thames did for London. Barges carried timber from Brandenburg's forests, grain from Prussian farmlands, and goods from across the Baltic trade network. The river connected Berlin to the Elbe and ultimately to Hamburg and the North Sea, making the city a crucial node in regional commerce. Bridges crossed the Spree at key points, linking the growing districts of Cologne and Berlin proper, with merchants, officials, and common citizens passing over them daily. In winter, when the Spree froze solid, the river transformed into a temporary thoroughfare. People walked across the ice, and market stalls appeared on its frozen surface, creating an alternative city that existed only in the coldest months. This scene shows Unter den Linden in the early 18th century, already developing into Berlin's most prestigious boulevard. Frederick I had ordered the planting of linden trees along this avenue, creating a grand approach to the city palace from the west. Along this street, noble families built their townhouses, and the emerging Prussian state erected buildings that projected power and order. The street became a stage for military parades, royal processions, and public ceremonies that reinforced the authority of the Prussian crown. Today, Unter den Linden remains Berlin's most famous street, though the buildings and the political system they served have changed beyond recognition. This view shows the Gendarmenmarkt in the mid-18th century, one of Berlin's most elegant public squares. At its center stood the French and German churches, serving the city's diverse Protestant communities. The French church catered to Huguenot refugees who had fled religious persecution in France and found welcome in Brandenburg, Prussia, bringing with them skills, capital, and cultural influences that enriched Berlin's development. Frederick William, the Great Elector, had invited these refugees decades earlier, seeing their potential to strengthen his territories. By the 1700s, French influence was visible throughout Berlin in language, fashion, architecture, and court culture. The Gendarmenmarkt embodied this cosmopolitan character, a space where different communities coexisted within the framework of Prussian authority. Rising on the city's outskirts stood the fortress of Spandau, one of the oldest fortifications in the region. By the 18th century, it served as a military arsenal, a prison for political enemies, and a treasury where Prussian kings stored emergency reserves of gold and silver. The fortress represented the military foundation upon which Prussian power rested. Unlike other European capitals that grew through commerce alone, Berlin's expansion was inseparable from military organization and discipline. This scene depicts the Brandenburg Gate's predecessor, the original city gate that stood at the western entrance to Berlin. In the 1700s, it was a modest Baroque structure, nothing like the monumental neoclassical gate that would replace it later. Yet even in its simpler form, it marked the boundary between the ordered city and the open countryside beyond. Travelers arriving from Western territories passed through here, entering a city that was rapidly transforming under the ambitions of Prussian kings. Beyond the gate stretched the Tiergarten, originally a royal hunting ground where Prussian monarchs pursued game. By the 18th century, it was being gradually opened to public use, though still maintaining its function as aristocratic recreational space. The transition from private royal preserve to public park reflected broader changes in how urban space was conceived and used. This image shows Potsdam in the mid-18th century, just outside Berlin, where Frederick the Great built his summer palace, Sanssouci. The palace and its terraced gardens represented a retreat from the formality of the Berlin court, a place where the king could pursue intellectual interests, host philosophers, and practice music. Yet even this apparent escape was deeply political. The palace's design, its French-inspired name meaning without care, and Frederick's cultivation of Enlightenment ideas were all part of crafting Prussia's image as a civilized, modern European power. The connection between Berlin and Potsdam grew tighter as the royal court moved between them seasonally. The road linking the two cities saw constant traffic, military units, government officials, supply wagons, and courtiers following the king's movements. This image captures the Neue Wache, or New Guardhouse, built in the early 19th century, but representing a tradition that stretched back through the 1700s. Military presence was woven into Berlin's daily life. Guard units paraded regularly, soldiers were quartered throughout the city, and military values of order, discipline, and hierarchy influenced civilian society. Prussia's army was disproportionately large for the state's population and economy, yet this military emphasis drove administrative efficiency, infrastructure development, and state cohesion. Berlin grew not despite its military character, but because of it, as military needs justified investments in roads, communications, and urban planning. This scene shows the construction of new districts beyond the old city walls. By the mid-18th century, Berlin's population was expanding rapidly, drawing workers, craftsmen, soldiers, and administrators. New Baroque and Rococo buildings rose alongside older medieval structures, creating a layered urban landscape. The Prussian state actively planned this growth, laying out streets in grid patterns, regulating building heights, and ensuring that expansion served both aesthetic and functional goals. What makes 18th century Berlin remarkable is not grandeur on the scale of Paris or Vienna, but rather the deliberate, disciplined character of its development. It was a capital built by a state that valued efficiency, military strength, and rational administration. The city's appearance reflected these priorities: orderly, functional, imposing rather than merely beautiful. Walking through these reconstructed scenes, it's striking how much of Berlin's later history was already taking shape. The military tradition, the cosmopolitan influences, the tension between authority and culture, the rapid planned expansion. All these elements that would define modern Berlin were already visible in the 1700s. Sometimes I wish I could step back and experience this place as it once was, even just for a single day. For now, this AI reconstruction is as close as I can come to that dream. If there's another German city, another moment in time, or a historic scene you'd like to see brought back to life, let me know in the comments. I'd love to keep building this journey into the past with you. Thank you so much.